later on they gave up. They said one head monk, the one that below the patriarchs. So he wrote that first, but later on this underrated layman, even he could not write, but he said out some verses so that some officer dictate his speech to write that verse on the wall, and so the master recognized him, and later on that night he passed the road. But later on he went to live with the hunters in the forest for 16 years before he went out to become a monk and teach. So again, his teaching is so remarkable. And when you study about Zen tradition, you see he talks much about and so forth. And his body is still intact. Remember, in Buddhism, in the past, they didn't use any kind of chemical. They didn't use any kind of, I don't know, things that preserve the body. Especially for this type of enlightened monks, they don't need that kind of chemical or whichever to preserve their body, but still intact. Why? Because when our mind is pure, our body will be pure. Logically.
Say it again.
When our mind is pure, our body will be pure.
Okay.
In Vietnam, we have 2 monks who preserve their body intact and keep the body intact for more than 300 years. In Tibet, in Taiwan, most of Buddhist countries have some monks that after they pass away, they leave their physical body like him. If you visit Guangzhou, or that southern China, and his temple, you see his body is still intact. Of course, now they put some kind of I don't know how they preserve the body, but they just keep the body intact. But the main thing is their body is still preserved by themselves.
It's impressive because Taiwan is very moist.
Yeah.
A lot of moisture.
No. Taiwan,
warm and moist.
Yeah, in tropical country, you know that. In Vietnam, Taiwan, in Burma and so forth, monks they let the body intact, even the immediate temperature over there.
Is he one of the sites for the pilgrimage?
Yeah, this is the famous one. If you visit Taiwan, if have time, I will compile the list of them, an image of them, so you can see. Okay. Yeah. And okay, let's just move on. Sorry, I want to combine the class. I want to make up one day class with today, so that we can move on, because this subject is still interesting. Okay. So let's move on. Dogen, Nick, please here. Dogen again is a Japanese monk. He went to study with many Japanese masters in Japan, but he could not satisfy with their teaching, so he went to China to study Zen tradition, Soto tradition, and later on he went back to Japan to spread that Zen tradition for the Japanese Buddhist people. And actually, his sect is one of the earliest sects that appear in America, in the early 20th century, when people start to learn about Buddhism. They start with one of the sects. So it's very popular. Okay, Kevin? Oh, Kevin is here.
With
Yeah, Ajahn Chah, what do you have here?
Ajahn Chah, he was born in 1918, and he lived with his family. He went to the monastery about the age of 6 for 3 years, where he learned how to read and write. Then he went back to his family to help on the farm. And at the age of 20, he went back in to become a monk. And since probably my favorite thing that I read about him is the fact that he spent 7 years living in caves and jungles with cobras and tigers to face his fear of death, because he felt like it was holding him back. He wanted to learn the true meaning of life, so he faced death every day so that he could truly appreciate and learn about life. and then he went and basically moved to the woods by his hometown, and so many people came to study with him and to learn from him that it ended up becoming like a giant monastery. And he traveled everywhere, from Britain to Canada to America, and when he died in 1992, he literally had sets still that went by his teachings around the world.
Thank you. Has any one of you lived in the forest before? No.
For how long?
I don't know.
For a while.
Oh, but how long? Couple days, couple weeks?
A week or two, like 2 weeks.
By yourself?
Oh no,
In the
it's in
jungle?
the army. There's
Army, okay. I'm talking about yourself.
Oh no.
No. Okay, in the jungle.
Yeah.
Already at the training, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Well,
short.
that and in the desert, and they put us
We
everywhere.
have that type of top training, right? But for ladies, no way, right?
No, they make you go to, I had to go to
Really?
no shower for 45 days.
Oh, really? By yourself or with the other people?
With the military.
Oh, really? Oh, you,
I was in the military. Oh, Army. Yeah.
but with a lot of people, you want
Right.
people yourself.
Yeah.
I'm talking about yourself. It's not easy. But of course, here, especially in the core area, there's not many dangers or wild animals, right? Snake or so, there's not much like in tropical countries. All kind of wild animals, and it's not easy to handle. That's why people respect him. That's why, like you say, he like to challenge with that because he faces that every day. You imagine that you go out there too cold, right? And even in the summer, you take care of the tick. Right, and the small insect, they bother us. Not talking about whether we with the wild animal like snake, lion and so forth. So, yes.
Have you ever been in the jungle?
Not the jungle, but I stay. It's just like a, you can say semi-forest. We have a farm, what we call wallet farms in California, and in the summer I have to wear to hide wood because whenever I step out, rattlesnake everywhere.
Snakes?
Yeah. Rattlesnake. You know rattlesnake?
Yeah.
And at night, you would hear all kinds of strange sound. We have the mountain lion and so forth that used to come down to catch the cow. I lived there for a year by myself in a small house. Yeah. So this is a bit challenging. Anyway, so that's the training for Buddhist monk. And he's real famous one because of his straightforward teaching. And plus, many American people follow him. And this one here, James Sumedo, at first he was he worked for Peace Corps in Thailand, and later on he became a Buddhist monk to follow him. Actually, he's one of my masters too. One of my masters, the one who transmitted the precept, the monk precept for me at my master temple. And now there's many of his Westerner students or disciples build many different Buddhist monasteries around the world. Yeah. So that's why he's so famous one. Okay, the next one. So today I'd just like to give you this kind of information for your knowledge, and later we study more about my higher and tradition. Okay, Suyun, Amy, what do you have?
He was the most influential, one of the most influential masters of the past 2 centuries,
Yeah.
and the most important in modern Chinese history. But he wasn't as well known in the West as Japanese Zen, but his teachings have persisted within Asia. He is still a major figure in Pure Land Buddhism, East Asia, and outside China. He influences his teachings is strongest throughout Southeast Asia, Vietnam, and Myanmar, and the Americas. But he was born, I forget what year it was.
Yeah.
It was 1850, I'm believing. And his mom died in childbirth, and then his dad left to another city. So his grandmother was there with him, and he found out about Buddhism when she died, but her wish was for him to finish his family's legacy, or to go on with his family's legacy and his uncles, and marry these two wives from two different families, the Tayin family and the Tang family. And when he was 14, he soon realized he didn't want to do that. He tried to become a Buddhist monk, and he started meditation, and his father demanded that he do Taoism instead. And he found that it wasn't as fulfilling, and he felt he was not going to reach the deeper truths of existence. So he tried to get away and travel, and his uncle stopped him, and they forced him to marry the two ladies, which he never consummated the marriage or anything. He said he stayed truthful to his body and everything, and never defiled it. But he later left his wives and his family, and he had taught them about Buddhism, and he started on his journey, and I believe he was like in his 60s before he actually became a Buddhist monk. But he went on a 12-week session to meditate with a bunch of other people, and he didn't have the money to get on this is one of his stories, he didn't have the money to get on the ferry, so they left without him. And he was walking along the river's edge. I guess he was going to walk there on foot, and he fell in the river, bobbing hopelessly for a day and a night, and then was caught in a fisher's net. He was carried to a nearby temple where he was received and treated for his injuries. Feeling ill, nevertheless, he returned to the temple and asked Gao Ming whether, he was asked by Gao Ming if he would participate in the upcoming weeks of meditation, and he politely declined, never telling him that he was sick. And in the temple they had rules, and if you were invited there to meditate and you didn't, then you were going to be punished. And he was beaten with a wooden ruler, which made him worse. But for the next several days, he sat in continuous meditation, and in his autobiography, he says that he forgot all about his body, and 20 days later, my illness vanished completely. From that moment, with my thoughts entirely wiped out, my practice took effect. Throughout the day and night, my steps were as swift as flying through the air. But pretty much he healed himself through meditation, and he became a Buddhist monk almost soon after that.
Okay, let me make correction. Let me go back to the story and make correction. Okay, anyway, according to his biography, he's lived up to 119 and 120.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and he's my grandmaster. So like she mentioned, his father, who was an officer, that wanted him to carry on the tradition, but he didn't like to do so. So he sneaked out. Even he got married with the two ladies, but he didn't work with the relationship with them much. So he left them to stay in the mountain, like Atlanta, for a while. And later on, his father passed away. So he did all kind of practice, and he went here and there to seek the teaching from many teachers, many masters. Plus, he did all kind of practice. And later on in his life, he did what we call 3-step, 1 bow. You don't know what he's talking about. Okay. All right, let me show you this. Okay, this is China map, right? Can you see? Okay, here is Shanghai, right? You know Shanghai, right? And Ningbo is the town is just nearby Shanghai. He did, okay, 3 steps. Let's say you walk 1, 2, 3, bow down. Let's go 3 steps, 1 bow. From here to the what do you call the High Peak Mountain. to here.
How many miles?
I don't know.
Looks like a
And it
lot.
took him more than 3 years throughout
Wow.
summer, winter, fall, and so forth. With that kind of dedication, he tried to transfer his memory to his parents. Yeah, that's what dedicated. That's what he did, and later on he became one of the greatest Zen master. Let me correct the story you mentioned. When he went to that temple, Karmin temple, or this is the Zen monastery, the abbot asked him to lead the meditation section, not to meditate. That's a different story because he's so famous and British. So, because he's so sick, remember that story? He fell down to the river, and so he refused because of that monastery rules. If someone invited to lead the meditation session, but they refused, they would be punished. So that's why he was beaten up by Buddhist. And later on, when he did meditation, he even forsake or let go of his body.
So they beat him with a wooden stick even though they don't believe in doing that?
What's that?
I'm confused.
You confused?
I thought they didn't like to put harm on other people and stuff.
Okay, that's confusion, right? Now let me put it this way. When we study about this one, what we call Linchi, and this sin, Linchi here, this is one of the great Zen master in Zen tradition. This monk, he has a style. Whenever a student comes, he either yell or hit them. Of course, not many monks did that, but this is this style. I remember, of course, Eastern and Western tradition is quite different.
But the yelling and the hitting was constructive.
That's the point.
Yeah.
That's the point. That's the way how to awake the student. Let's say, if you have children, right, and they're so lazy in the morning to go to school, you may yell to them, "Hey, wake up!" Is that right? Of course, not even. As childhood, so
I don't think any form of hitting can be constructive.
Okay, that's yeah. In the West, it's quite different, but in the East, that's normal. Yeah. So in the army, right? You got I don't know whether you got hit or got yelled a lot of times, right?
They weren't allowed to hit anymore.
No.
No.
In the past, they did, right?
Yeah, like when our parents.
Well, I mean,
were
not a
and stuff like
basic,
that.
I mean.
Yeah.
You see this in the past, but of course it's not now. Yeah, of course.
They're allowed to yell though.
Okay, no. Anyway, so again, later on we talk about it. So he's one of the famous master, and even later on, when the Chinese communists took over the whole China,
Yeah, that's what.
and what happened? They beat him to death. Twice, not once. And so somehow he attained that kind of samadhi at that moment, and he had connection with Maitreya Bodhisattva. And he went up there and said, "Oh, I'd like to stay here." But Maitreya Bodhisattva said, "Sorry, not your time, go down there." By your fail, you come out.
So did they beat him to death?
But he still survived. He still survived when he was about 110.
How did he meditate his body to heal?
First was the version of meditation. Now they use mindfulness in healing bodies. That's why I'm going to teach mindfulness and its multidisciplinary application. I just have the discussion with some professor from all the programs. Anyway, you will see the mind have the will, have the power to heal the body. If you know how to use it. Okay?
He's nominated for president too.
Yeah, he was one of the first Chinese Buddhist president, but he didn't accept that horse. He just accepted to be honored in that organization. Okay, let's move on. The next one, the last one, who did the teaching hand? Okay, what do you find about him?
Okay, he's actually.
Oh, I'm sorry that I skipped Dalai Lama. That's for you, right? Well, that's good. Let's go ahead to talk about what do you have?
Okay, he's actually a present-day Vietnamese monk. He's still alive.
Mm-hmm.
I chose him really just because no one had, but I've also read a few of his books. He was born in Vietnam, and at the age of 16, he joined a Buddhist temple called Tu Hayu, and followed the master Dina. He also traveled to the United States to do studies in comparative religion, and actually was exiled from Vietnam. So ended up living here and teaching at Cornell and Columbia. He's also very famous for like his nonviolent peace efforts. During the Vietnam War, he tried to aid monks with peaceful practices and promoting peace. And then he was actually allowed to go back in, I believe, the early 2000s. So he made a trip back to Vietnam.
Actually, if you study Buddhism, his name comes across a lot. Yeah, he wrote many books, probably more than 50 books on Buddhism. This is a remarkable person. During Vietnam War, he organized the youth corps that went to battlefield to help the civilians. But somehow he was crucified by both sides, Viet Cong and South Vietnam armies. You know, when two persons are fighting, and you want to stop their fighting, they may accuse you or they may hit you too. Right? So it's not easy. And later on, he was nominated by Martin Luther King as a Nobel Peace Prize. And right now, he's really famous in this leadership in the West. With his style of teaching, this is so adaptable in the Western realms. Yeah. So he has several Buddhist monasteries in the state. Plus, there's a group that follow his style, but they are lay people in New York. There's some of you style practice. So again, his style of teaching is very liberal and understandable for lay people. Yes.
I noticed part of his name is similar to your name.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Not similar here. Not similar here. Let me talk about this one. Most of or all Buddhist monks are known have this one, like last name. Okay, this is translated from Shatpia. The last name of Buddha. Okay, Pig. And we have the first name, so forth. Okay. All right, let's move on to Dalai Lama. Who knows this? Yeah, please, what do you have?
The Dalai Lama, high priest of the Yellow Hat
Yes.
school of Tibetan Buddhism. His name is taken from the words for ocean and teacher in Mongolian and Tibetan, respectively. Dalai Lama is a reincarnation, the being who represents the Bodhisattva of compassion.
That's Bodhisattva. I learned Bodhisattva. I just mentioned recently. That they believe. They believe that he is one of his reincarnation. Yeah.
As well as being the de facto leader of the Yellow Hat school of Buddhism, the Dalai Lama is a widely revered figure both within Buddhism and in other religious views and secular views. He is very widely respected. There have been 14 Dalai Lamas, with the first being in the 1400s. The current Dalai Lama is in exile because in 1959, when there's an uprising by the Tibetans against the Chinese, whenever they were occupying, and that uprising failed. So the Dalai Lama and a lot of other prominent Tibetans sought refuge in India, and that's what they're doing now. The current Dalai Lama believes that he's probably the last Dalai Lama, but he said it's up to the followers of the Buddhist tradition whether the title of Dalai Lama will continue on or not.
Yeah, okay, so let me some of what he said, right? So he's the 14th one. Starting from Kalupa tradition. And he was the so again, according to the Tibetan tradition, he's one of the incarnation of that Bodhisattva, Mahavajra Bodhisattva. That's the belief or the faith. And that's the last May when he came here. Some of you, most of you know, right? We have the special meeting with him. So I'm one of the translators of Vietnamese.
Is that you?
You don't recognize me?
Yeah.
Sure?
Yeah.
Really? Okay, you want me to play for 1 minute?
That's good. Okay.
Yes.
This teaching we can accept because it solid basis of reasons. This Buddhist teaching we cannot accept because it goes against such reasons. So that's I think something quite unique. Then our compassion not only includes humanity, but the entire sentient being. The Buddhist, particularly Buddhists who follow the Sanskrit tradition.
Okay, that's okay. You said a lot how you can find. So I'm not look like you.
It's you. It's you.
Okay. Yes.
So, like the Dalai Lama, like he's a prominent figure in Tibetan Buddhism. Is he also one in the Mahayana Buddhism or like the Vietnamese?
Like I told you many times. Up to now, in the higher tradition, we respect him as the Pope, but not the one like the because each of our Buddhist traditions run operate by ourselves independently. You understand that? So we don't have any central authority. But in general, people respect him as a Pope. Right? Yes?
How come your robe is yellow there and it's brown here?
That's different. I will explain to you later on. Okay. Okay, why? Okay, now that's all for us. We still have only 10 or 12 minutes left to discuss about the topic that we missed. Okay. So again, you see that they are the red figures in Buddhist traditions. Okay. And later on, we study Mahayana and Theravada tradition, we see more of them. And let's just talk about this briefly. Theravada monastery communities, Mahayana monastery communities. Let me summarize for you to understand. In Burma and so forth, monks they left the body intact, even the immediate temperature over there.
Is he one of the sites for the pilgrimage?
Yeah, this is a famous one. If you visit Taiwan, it had times that we will compile the list of them, an image of them, so you can see. Okay. Yeah. And okay, let's just move on. Sorry, I want to combine the class. I want to make up Monday class with today, so that we can move on, because this subject is still interesting. Okay. So let's move on. Dogen, Dick, please here. Dogen again is chapter. Later they gave up. They said one head monk, the one that below the patriarchs. So he wrote that first, but later on this under wicked layman. Even he could not write, but he said out some verses so that some officer did take his speech to write that verse on the wall, and so the master recognized him. And later at night he passed the road. But later on he went to live with the hunters in the forest for 16 years before he went out to become a monk and teach. So again, his teaching is so remarkable. And when you study about Zen tradition, you see it talk much about. But most Buddhist country have some monks that after they pass away, they leave their physical body like him. If you visit Guangzhou or that southern China and his temple, you see his body is still intact. Of course, now they put some kind of I don't know how they preserve the body, but they just keep the body intact. But the main thing is their body is still preserved by themselves.
It's impressive because Taiwan is very moist.
Yeah.
A lot of moisture.
No. Taiwan,
Warm and moist.
Yeah, in tropical country, you know that. In Vietnam, Taiwan, and his body is still intact. Remember, in Buddhism, in the past, they didn't use any kind of chemical. They didn't use any kind of, I don't know, things that preserve the body. Especially for this type of enlightened monks, they don't need that kind of chemical or whichever to preserve their body, but still intact. Why? Because when our mind are pure, our body will be pure. Logically.
Say it again.
When our mind are pure, our body will be pure.
Okay.
In Vietnam, we have 2 monks who preserve their body intact and keep the body intact for more than 300 years. In Tibet, in Taiwanese monk, if we went to study with many Japanese masters in Japan, that is, they could not satisfy with their teaching, so he went to China to study Zen tradition, Soto tradition, and later on he went back to Japan to spread that Zen tradition for the Japanese Buddhist people. And actually, his sect is one of the early sects that appear in America in the early 20th century, when people start to learn about Buddhism. They start with one of the sects. So it's very popular. Okay, Kevin. Oh, Kevin is here.
With
Yeah, Ajahn.